The Spider-Verse influence has officially reached the world of anime. I think we all saw it coming, didn't know when it would come, didn't know where, didn't know how, but it's here. If you go to my anime list right now and you go to the spring 2025 section, so you know, all the anime that literally just started airing, and you scroll all the way down to the section that indexes ONAs or original net animations, then you'll find that the highest rated anime of this season so far, which is currently sitting at an 8.5 at the time that I'm recording this video, so damn near a 9, is a brand new Chinese anime called 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠. Upon seeing such a high rating from what was frankly an unexpected series, I decided to give episode 1 of 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠 a try. Alright, as of right now, only one episode is aired, and let me just say this right now, bruh. Holy shit. Visually, it's on a whole different level. Storytelling wise, music, voice acting, everything I've seen so far is screaming potential. Like, I'm nervous to jump the gun because I've seen shows have like crazy episode 1s and then fall off as the season goes on. But if 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠 can keep up the same energy that I just watched in episode 1 throughout the entire season, oh yeah, that's anime of the year right there, bro. On your uncle's soul. On your uncle's soul. Not mine though. Not mine. Today, I want to take you all through the first episode of 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠. Hopefully, you'll see in this show what I see in this show potential-wise, and yeah. Without any further ado, 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠 episode 1. So we start off by getting like this opening sequence exposition dump to give us a bit more context on the world of 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠. Basically, in the world of 𝙏𝙖𝙡, the amount of power you have is proportional to the amount of people that place their trust in you. The more people that trust you to protect them, the stronger you get. Now, right off the bat, I feel like this makes a pretty interesting power dynamic within this verse, right? Because it sets up this world in such a way where the power that someone has is not intrinsic. The only difference between the strongest hero in the world and the weakest hero in the world is the fact that for whatever reason, the strongest hero has been able to convince more people to trust in their abilities than the weakest hero has. When you think about it, this system basically turns trust into a sort of power currency that honestly probably functions similar to how money functions in the real world. The more you have, the more power you get, and basically it causes like this self-reinforcing, self-sustaining loop where the most trusted individuals in the world end up the strongest, and because they're the strongest, they garner even more trust, and I mean, yeah, you get the idea. Anywho, because the power in this world is basically a popularity contest, the heroes have these PR and advertising firms that they use to make sure their popularity stays up, right? Like, these firms basically make sure that these heroes keep a positive public perception, and it's actually in one of these advertising firms that we meet the main character of the series, this dude named Lin Ling. Now, Lin, who's an employee for an advertising firm, is working on a campaign for this hero that goes by the name of Nice, and Lin's boss, this ugly motherfucker with a comb over, is not too happy with the commercial that Lin came back with because he feels like the commercial doesn't have enough of a focus on Nice himself. You see, Lin, despite working in hero advertising, wants to be a hero himself. Like, he aspires to be in the position that Nice is in, and I mean that in more ways than one. Like, he's low-key kind of obsessed with Nice's girlfriend, this hero named Moon. But anyway, I guess Lin can't really separate his personal feelings from his work, and so the advertisement that he cooks up, which is supposed to just be nice glaze, comes off as more of a anyone can be a hero type commercial. And I mean, as sweet as a sentiment as that is to hear, they're supposed to be making a commercial for Nice, not for the general public. Long story short, Lin's boss isn't having any of that shit, and he fires Lin for sending the commercial back to the client without getting it approved by him first. And so Lin, with I guess nothing else to live for, climbs up to the top of the skyscraper that he works in, presumably to, you know, GG. Before Lin can do anything crazy, he hears another commercial going off behind him, right? Of course, it's a Nice commercial, which, like, you know, that's just cruel irony at this point. But as Lin turns around to flip off Nice, you know, hit him with the Chinese middle finger and let off one last rant of pure hatred in Nice's direction, the real Nice suddenly comes floating from out of the sky like Homelander, and he gracefully lands on the building a few paces away from Lin. We then proceed to get this dramatic ass scene where Nice is like slow walking across the length of the building, right? A bunch of doves come flying out of nowhere between him and Lin. Like, the visuals are absolutely stunning, I'll give them that, as dramatic as that shit was. But as I'm sitting there watching this, I'm like, okay, you know, we're gonna get some typical inspirational type scene, you know, we're gonna have Nice pull up and kind of like stop Lin from hitting the GG on himself. But then all of a sudden, Nice keeps walking. And he keeps walking, and he doesn't stop walking. He walks all the way off the edge of the building, and he GG's himself. Now at this point, I'm like, whoa. All right, bro, that just took an insane turn. And bear in mind, I can't show the full extent of this scene on YouTube for, obvious reasons. I'm not trying to get my channel smoked with a terms of service violation. But the level of detail that they went into on this scene in particular, that shit was absolutely insane, bro. Like normally they'll, cut away before the victim hits the ground or something, but nah, they went into full brutal detail for this particular scene. And so at the very least, as I'm watching this, like I'm on guard now, bro, because from this point moving forward, I really have no idea when shit is gonna pop off and start going tweak mode for no reason. Anywho, not long after Lynn witnesses Nice's save file deletion, Nice's management team pulls up to find the aftermath, and they immediately take Lynn in, seeing as though he was like the only person to actually see what happened to Nice. They throw this potato sack over his head. I don't know where they got a random potato sack from, but when Lynn finally comes to, he's in like this abandoned building with the 4 men that captured him, as well as Nice's manager, who's this lady named Miss J. First things first, just getting this out the way, Miss J is fine as hell, alright? Crazy, borderline sociopathic, yes, absolutely, but she's also very pretty, and so, it kinda cancels out in my book. Anywho, Miss J starts interrogating Lynn, trying to figure out more details about what he saw. But as she's mid-interrogation, she gets a phone call that she has to step away to take. Lynn tries to use this phone call as an opportunity to stage his own escape, and he starts running for his goddamn life. But as Lynn is running off, Miss J proceeds to pick up a random bucket of paint and no-look beam that shit at Lynn as he's running away. Perfect aim, square in the dome. She knocks that nigga out, and once again, Lynn is captured with no chance of trying to escape. Now, Nice has white hair, right? Or he had white hair, rather. I guess his shit is probably white and red now, like his name is Todoroki. But anyway, I bring this up because the bucket of paint that Miss J beamed at Lynn just so happens to be a bucket of white paint. And when Miss J sees that Lynn with white hair kind of looks similar to Nice in the face, she's like, hold on, bruh, I think we just found ourselves a stand-in for Nice. Now this, once again, I think is one of those instances where the power system of this world creates some really interesting dynamics for this show, because in most series, when you lose a character, they're gone. Full stop. There's no bringing them back unless you have the intervention of like Dragon Ball magic or, I don't know, bullshit science. You get the idea. However, in the world of 2B Hero X, you can technically lose a character and still keep their powers around as long as you can find a way to convince the public that said character never died in the first place. In other words, it doesn't matter if the real Nice is actually dead. It doesn't matter if Lynn is just role-playing as Nice to cover Miss J's ass. As long as the public thinks that Lynn is Nice, then Lynn becomes imbued with all the trust that Nice has garnered, which effectively makes him the new Nice. Over the next couple weeks, Lynn starts training with Nice's team in order to perfect being Nice. He starts perfecting Nice's mannerisms. He starts training in Nice's fighting style, which is like this cross between ballet and karate. He's doing everything he has to do so that when he finally does go out in public again as Nice, he is indistinguishable from the real deal. Unfortunately for Lynn, Nice's first public appearance after his quote-unquote solitary training hiatus is actually a very public appearance. He's supposed to appear on like this couple's game show with his girlfriend Moon, and so yeah, Lynn is getting thrown into the deep end, going straight from training into publicly broadcasted live television where he can't really afford to slip up even once. On top of that, as I mentioned earlier, Lynn himself is kind of a Moon stan, right? Like he has a crush on Moon as a fan, and so yeah, imagine being put in a position where you're suddenly being passed off as your celebrity crush's boyfriend. That's essentially what the boy Lynn is going through right now. Now it's at this point that Lynn finally starts having some trepidations about this whole ordeal, right? He finally starts questioning if role-playing as a dead guy is even ethical. It's not, but he doesn't really have much time to question the morality of this whole thing before Miss J is pushing him out of the car and into the spotlight. And look, I'll give credit where credit is due. Lynn locks the fuck in, bro. For someone who's all nervous and antsy in real life, he plays a really convincing, suave type character. Like the level of grace that he demonstrates actually takes some legitimate talent to pull off, especially under this type of pressure. And so, yeah, props to him. Anyway, Lynn is living out his dream of being with with Moon in what's a rather strange, dishonest, quite frankly creepy manner of doing so. But before long, the two of them make their way into the studio, and the dating game show officially commences, with the host of the game show being the Hero Association's rank 249th hero, this dude named 𝙏𝙖𝙡, the Truth Seeker or some shit like that. Now, the one word I can think of to describe this nigga 𝙏𝙖𝙡 is hatred. 𝙏𝙖𝙡 has some insane vendetta against Nice, right? He sees him as like a fake or something like that, a fraud, if you will. I can only assume that because Nice is at the top of the hero rankings while 𝙏𝙖𝙡 is like mid 200s, you know, that also leads to some tension. But 𝙏𝙖𝙡 basically volunteered to be the host of this particular episode for the sole and exclusive purpose of exposing Nice as a fraud on live TV. This of course sounds rather unfortunate for Lin, who is a fraud that's disguising himself as Nice on live TV. But things actually low-key end up working out in Lin's favor when 𝙏𝙖𝙡 starts grilling him on these super niche trivia questions about Moon. 𝙏𝙖𝙡 tries to catch Nice lacking by asking him how many commercials Moon has been in and what the total runtime is for all the commercials combined. I don't know what that has to do with being a couple, but whatever. The thing is though, Lin is not only a Moon stan, but he also was the employee in charge of making Moon's commercials at his old job. And so he just so happens to have the very specific overlap of knowledge needed to answer this question with perfect accuracy. Surprised that Nice managed to answer his question correctly, 𝙏𝙖𝙡 activates what I assume is his superpower, and this strange looking lie detector spawns out of nowhere and connects itself to Lin. After his lie detector is hooked up, 𝙏𝙖𝙡 gets straight to the point. He's like, tell me the truth, Nice. Is Moon really your girlfriend? Now obviously, 𝙏𝙖𝙡 doesn't know that he's not speaking to the real Nice right now, right? And throughout the past few minutes of this episode, we've been getting subtle hints that Nice's relationship with Moon was like kind of fake. Like, I'm pretty sure it was one of those celebrity PR relationships crafted to, you know, mutually boost their public perception or something. And so had this been the real Nice that 𝙏𝙖𝙡 was talking to, Nice definitely would have been cooked right here, bro. However, because Lin is actually in love with Moon in like a delusional fan sort of way, he's able to finesse the question, right? He's like, no, Moon isn't my girlfriend. She's actually my goddess. And because Lin genuinely within his fanboy heart of hearts views Moon as his goddess, the lie detector detects this glaze ass statement as truth, and he basically ends up coming out of this interaction looking even better than the real Nice would have. Now at this point, 𝙏𝙖𝙡 starts tweaking, right? His hatred reaches a whole new level, and he's like, man, fuck these questions, even though the game show is literally centered around questions and his power is literally about extracting the truth. He's like, fuck these questions, how about we shoot some fade? Suddenly, the wall behind 𝙏𝙖𝙡 opens up, and standing behind that wall is none other than Lin's old boss. Apparently, because of Lin's shitty ass commercial, not only did Lin get fired from his advertising job, but Lin's boss also got fired by Miss J without being paid for his labor, might I add, which, like, damn. Miss J is a real slime ball, still fine as hell though. But because he got fired and finessed by Nice's management team, this old ass nigga has apparently decided to put on this mech suit battle armor and run his fade with Nice on live television for the world to see. Once 𝙏𝙖𝙡 is out of the way, this black goo-like substance starts bubbling up under the boss's mech suit, and he creates a whip out of this goo, which he like uses to attack Nice. But bear in mind, Lin as Nice still has all of the trust that Nice has garnered from the public. And so with the power vested in him from this trust, he's able to dodge and maneuver around these attacks pretty well. He's even able to get in some good attacks of his own. But you see, the thing about the boss is that, come to find out, he was somehow able to unlock supervillain powers, which instead of being fueled by trust, are fueled by the fear and despair that his ex-employees felt when he would lay them off, which is actually insane work, by the way. Like, layoff powers, my boy, that is crazy. Suddenly the boss locks in and he creates this attack, which is essentially like these black shards of goo, but they're in the shape of layoff emails. Nice tries dodging this attack and hitting the boss with a kick to the core, but after absorbing the fear of everyone in the studio, the boss now outscales Nice pretty significantly, and he's able to low-key beat the shit out of Nice with this laser attack that he oh so cleverly names Deadline. Lin, upon seeing that he's low-key getting cooked, starts getting consumed by fear as well. We get this really cool sequence where the fear goo starts to like overtake his body, which like leads into this 2D style flashback sequence where Lin is kind of like reminiscing on everything that he's had to go through over the past couple weeks. But apparently, somehow, in his delusional fanboy mind, meeting Moon and being with Moon over these past few hours has saved his life, right? Like, it's just changed his outlook on the world so greatly that he gets an extreme power boost from having Moon trusted him. And with this 𝙏𝙖𝙡 boost of strength received from Moon's trust, Lin is able to tank his ex-boss's next attack and hit him with a goddamn Detroit Smash one-shot that eviscerates the mech suit and sends the boss flying on like some real plot armor, the power of trust, OP plus ultra type shit. We transition into what I assume is a few minutes later, and Lin is back in the car with Miss J. He's kind of monologuing to himself and he's like, you know, I get it now. As of right now, I am nice, right? Like he's finally starting to internalize this idea that he is the hero known as Nice. Seeing that after all these weeks, Lin is finally starting to get with the program, Miss J is like, it's about time, and she finally grants him permission to go to Nice's home in Hero Tower, since I guess if he's nice now, he gets to live like Nice too. As Nice and Miss J are making their way up to the penthouse suite of the tower, Lin asks her if she's figured out anything about why Nice, you know, and Miss J responds somewhat ominously. She's like, yeah, it was his own choice to do so, and someday soon, you'll be put in that same position where you'll be faced with a choice. Now, I don't really know what she was getting at there, but if I'm Lin right now, I'm not trying to hear that. I'm not even going to lie to you right now. Anywho, Lin goes into Nice's penthouse, which is like this giant high-tech fucking mansion. It's honestly dope as hell, apart from the big ass statue of himself that Nice had erected dead in the center of the penthouse right when you walk in. But upon going to lay next to Moon, Nice's girlfriend, which of course, you know, Lin is freaking out over being to lay next to Moon, but upon going to lay next to Moon, Lin soon comes to find out that Moon is dead.